I'm gonna be real with y'all. This chapter of Vigilantes didn't really slap that bad. Didn't really slap. It's very unfortunate, but we're still gonna review it right after this intro. Hit it. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Big Blue Drew 97 here, coming at you with another manga review for My Hero Academia. Let me move this mic back a little bit more. Vigilantes, manga chapter 93, titled 3 Seconds. And overall, this wasn't a horrible chapter. It wasn't bad at all. Not in the slightest. But there wasn't really anything really gripping about this. It's just really continuing from what we saw with last chapter. And I think last chapter was probably a lot better because we got a little bit more insight of All for One as a character and how he views the world. While in this chapter, it's not a whole lot. And I mean, still, I'm still going to review it, but just let you know, there really wasn't a whole lot to it. This is probably going to be a shorter video than most. But before we get into the review, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so already, to subscribe to my channel, as well as leave a like and a comment down below, because by doing so, it helps with the YouTube algorithm. At least that's what I've been told, being on YouTube for the past multiple years. So do it so that this video gets a little bit more traction, so I can grow my YouTube channel, so you can get a little bit more content like this in your subscription feeds. And without the way, let's get right into the review. Starting off with just really the cover page, where we just see, it's not really that bad, just that's probably the best part of the chapter, where we see Tiger Bunny, Rapper, and O'Clock basically standing in front of an image of All Might, and behind him you have All for One being menacing. And overall, like, that's primarily going to be the focus of this chapter, just between these characters and nothing really else, because we start the chapter off, and this is probably what I enjoyed most about this chapter. We start the chapter off with these newly created villains by All for One running through the streets, causing mayhem, coming out of this garage, and then you have Fat Gum, who's right there. He's just being young. He's this really inexperienced hero. He's like, stop right there, I'm gonna stop you, and I think he just gets trampled. But from here, we basically just get a monologue of All Might, and he's coming into Osaka. He uses his Might Eyes and his Might Insight to basically get an understanding and feel of the entire area. And here's where I probably have like a initial problem with this chapter, because we see All Might land, we see him doing all of these heroic things. He's saving people, he's stopping the villains, he's helping the firefighters fight fires, he's like rescuing the children, he's saving dogs, he's doing all of this, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is okay. The one thing that ticks me off a little bit, and one thing that I find to be a little bit inconsistent, is that we see All Might in like the bottom right corner, and it shows that he's flying. Now you may be thinking like, oh, that makes sense, All Might can fly. He really can't. Even like earlier in the Vigilante series, as far as I'm aware, we haven't seen him like stationary flying. Like, he can like theoretically fly because he moves fast enough, and we've seen Deku, someone, have some version of flight before float, when he's able to kick the air fast enough and like be able to like jettison his way that way. But he's literally like just standing or in the middle of the air, holding a car in one hand, holding the building in the other, and I'm just looking at that and I'm like, I don't think he can do that. Like, he wouldn't have float. He technically doesn't, unless like he's kicking the air underneath him. Like, theoretically, like, there's no way he should do that. That's kind of annoying, but I can disregard it because, you know, anime, comics, manga, all of that. But I still find that to be an inconsistency with All Might's characterized in this manga, which could also tie into like how we had like Might Sense and like Might Insight. That could screw that into a different way, where I thought like, oh, it makes sense that he's able to do that because that's just his type of personality. But now I'm like, well, is it in this manga? It's a little confusing. I think that's like a detriment to it. The inconsistencies, as far as I'm aware of, with All Might and his power set, and like how actually strong he is, because this is basically All Might in his prime before his fight with All for One, where he took all of that damage, where he can only stay in his muscular form for an hour, and that decreases over time. This is him at his peak, and we've seen what he can do at his peak. And even now, he apparently did all of this saving and like landed, caught his pedal, and said, I am here, within the span of 3 seconds. It's the name of the title, roll credits. But yeah, overall, like, that's just very inconsistent in my eyes. Maybe you can explain it in the comments down below, but I just find them to be really inconsistent, and that kind of took me out of the chapter. But like I said, I still enjoyed it. I still enjoy Vigilantes, and then from here, that's where we get like all by trying to say, what is the situation? How is everything going? We get like the idea that All For One did all of this just to buy himself a few seconds, because Kuriri is like, yo, All Might is always doing his thing. He did all of this within like the span of a few seconds, and All For One is like, well, that's all we really needed for that to happen, because now we're cutting back over to the fight between Rapper and O'Clock versus the hooded Nomu. As we see that they're continuing fighting, O'Clock is bobbing and weaving, and his plan is basically to attack this hooded figure, cut him up, slam into him, like make him get off balance, while Rapper deals heavy damage to him. And that's basically what the plan is, and he continues to do that many times. And while Rapper is hitting up the hooded Nomu, he would fall back so that he can catch his breath and repeat this over and over again, and basically doing this until All Might arrives. That is his plan. But unfortunately, he does not factor in the hooded figure using part of the cage as basically a fly swatter, and slaps Rapper like away. And because now Rapper cannot continuously do damage to him while O'Clock is taking the breath, he's like, oh, I'm screwed. He doesn't say that, but like what's going through his mind is basically like, oh, there's nothing that I can do about this. I'm in danger. But luckily enough, a particular individual comes out of nowhere and strikes this hooded Nomu with a mighty kick. And yes, it's Tiger Bunny. Tiger Bunny comes back, and both Rapper and O'Clock are like, why are you back here? And her response is like, yo, y'all were fighting here. I'm not gonna miss a fight. Also, I'm a hero in training, so I feel as if like I should be doing this. That's her response. I'm like, yeah, that from what we know about Mirko, I'm sorry, what we know about Tiger Bunny, yeah, this seems like pretty accurate to like what she would do. So she's back into the fight. She wants to fight again, and there's a fun like piece of like dialogue between her and Rapper, and she's like, and Rapper's like, hey, you're more of a mad dog than you are a rabbit. And I'm like, yeah. She crazy. She crazy. She is insane. That's all I can really say. I love her, but she is insane. So yeah, we get that scene, and then we get the hooded figure. He's growing more in power. He's becoming more monstrous, and he begins to speak. He says, if I kill you, that means, oh, why am I doing that? Well, if I kill you, that means I get to be strongest. That's basically what he says, which, you know, makes sense, because if you remember, like, this is implying that this hooded figure is the hooded Nomu, and that makes sense for something that person would say, not only because he was like someone who fought in underground fighting arenas and really likes to win, but the hooded figure wanted to fight Endeavor because he was the strongest, and he wanted to match up his power. And this kind of builds up on that idea of like why the hooded figure really wanted to fight Endeavor, because he really wanted to fight the strongest hero. And he thinks that by defeating them that he will be considered the strongest. And while Tiger Bunny, while Ripper is having this conversation back and forth, worrying about like how they're gonna stop this person, you have this image of All For One who's looking on in like disgust and a little bit disappointment, as we get more dialogue coming from O'Clock thinking like, yo, we were screwed, but thanks to Tiger Bunny, Mirko, whoever this girl is, she bought us enough time for him to arrive, as we see All Might coming in trying to chant that I am, as we get to see that Kurogiri now draws back the hooded Nomu. It's like, yeah, I think it's time for him to come back, as he brings in the hooded Nomu. The hooded Nomu doesn't want to come back, and as the hooded Nomu disappears, All Might comes in by saying here, and just looking around like, what's going on, what's happening, what, and everyone's like, the villain's not here anymore, what's going on? And you just have O'Clock just having this, and then the chapter ends, and I'm like, okay, that's a weird way to just end the chapter. It just ends. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's pretty much the entirety of the chapter. And like I said, nothing really exciting really happened. This was like average chapter at best, like mediocre at worst, because nothing really happens. I mean, sure, we get to see All Might doing his thing in his prime, but there's still inconsistency to that. We got to see Rapper, Ripper, O'Clock. We get to see them fight off this hooded Nomu, which is very cool to see, but they're about to be trapped. They get a disadvantage. Miracle comes in, Tiger Bunny comes in, which makes sense to try and stop him, buys them enough time for All Might to come, and then Hood just disappears. So you maybe think like, what was the point of this? And if the flashback ends here, then what was the point of this flashback? And I still like go with the idea that this flashback, hopefully, most likely, we are going to see All for One's face revealed. Fingers crossed about that. But after reading it for a while and thinking about it a little bit more, I think this is setting up to the moment where O'Clock loses his quirk Overclock and then begins to become Knuckle Duster. Maybe at the end of this entire flashback, we may get the reveal that Knuckle Duster is actually alive. It's just, I think this has all been a prelude to O'Clock coming to the realization of All for One existing and beginning his search for him. I think that's where this flashback is going. And the only drawback too is that this flashback isn't based off of Knuckle Duster specifically thinking about it, but his friend who's also a police officer. So unless he also knows about that situation, that's where I think it's going. It's a possibility that that may not be the case at all, but that's just my thoughts on it. But like I said, overall, not really interesting of a chapter. It's just, if anything, it's like the embodiment of a setup chapter. This is most likely going to be setting up for something else in this flashback. Hopefully, because I do not think that's going to end, and if it does, that's just a bit disappointing. But I think that's setting up for O'Clock beginning to realize that this drug is bigger than him, and he's going to try and find the source of it, which will lead him to All for One, which will lead to his quirk being taken. So I think that we will see more of his quirk being taken in this flashback, hopefully. So that's all I really have to say on this chapter. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. Hopefully you enjoyed the chapter. If you did, leave your thoughts down below. Did you think that this was an amazing chapter? Did you think that it was mediocre? Did you think that it was bad? Explain why you think it may be bad, or explain your thoughts down in the comments below. As well as when you're down there, leave a like on this video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to, click the little bell icon to be notified of when I upload videos. Do all of that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in the next video. Goodbye. Ooh.